Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online. News that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Jonny Coker. In today's episode, we're taking a look at how the Las Cruces Police Department is taking steps to build trust within the community. What is being done and how is the culture changing, and what will the department's future look like? I have more in this report. The Las Cruces Police Department recently began hosting in-person and online forums for the community, giving updates on the status of crime trends in the city. At the update, LCPD Interim Chief Jeremy Story said addressing crime needs a multifaceted approach.
One, we're dealing with crime when it occurs. It's something we can do to deal with that crime is then use the crime they committed to maybe spur them into treatment or services. There's a lot of data on the use of things like Suboxone and methadone that can help people that are dealing with that. And ultimately, it's one of the tools we can leverage as officers, the same way we do with the criminal charges.
According to the LCPD, property crime in the city rose nearly 71% from 2018 to 2022. Yvonne Flores, Las Cruces City Councilor for District 6, said that she's confident in the LCPD and that it's important to keep in mind nationwide trends when seeing the rise in crime in the city.
Generally speaking, I feel very confident that they're going in the right direction. The city of Las Cruces, the police department, has always been very conscientious about its relations with the people of the city of Las Cruces. I think it's easy to say that the city council or local government isn't doing its job. But the truth of the matter is that we are in a terrible state throughout the United States, I think throughout the world.
Chief Story said that the meetings with the community are how problems get solved, and that he's encouraged by the support that he's received from both residents and elected officials. While crime has risen significantly since 2018, the city saw a small decrease in its 2023 preliminary crime report.
This is the first decrease we've had in 5 years. It's a 5% decrease year to date for all crime. But that's a huge win. When we were the same time last year, I think we were at about a 40% increase over 2021. So it's a drastic difference, but it's not where people want us to be either. So we still have a lot of work to do.
Ramona Martinez is a Las Cruces resident and practicing attorney within the city. She said she came to the meeting because of concern regarding crime within her own neighborhood and said that city officials' dialogue with citizens is a step in the right direction.
I completely agree with what was said tonight, that this effort to combat the issues that are going on in our community is going to be a community-wide issue, is going to take a community-wide effort, and that our community leaders need to all work together. And I don't feel that that's been necessarily happening in the past so far. So this gives me positive hope that the police, working with conjunction with other people, will be addressing this problem.
While the city reported a small decrease in crime, stakeholders hope that their efforts are effective, and with the help of residents, hope to make more strides in getting back to pre-pandemic numbers. Joining me now to talk more in depth about the Las Cruces Police Department is Lieutenant Joy Wiitala, Community Outreach Lieutenant for the LCPD. Lieutenant, thanks so much for being here today.
You are so welcome. Happy to be here.
So what does the Community Outreach Lieutenant do? Can you just give me an overview of what your job is, basically?
Sure. So I am a lieutenant over 4 different sections where I oversee our community outreach officers, our school resource officers, our code section, and our animal control officers. Ultimately, the community outreach lieutenant is in charge of each of those sections, and in particular, what we're here today about is the community outreach section. And regarding that section, it really is all about community partnerships and engaging the community and then working with them in order to look at crime solving and solutions to some of the concerns that we have within our community.
Sure. So what is a successful, community outreach plan for the LCPD? What does that look like in a perfect world?
Ooh, in a perfect world, first off, it's going to be multifaceted. okay, if we're going into like a community outreach plan, not only is there going to be a community outreach team within the police department, but we're going to be using our community as the central resource to problem solve when it comes to the crimes that are occurring. I always like to go back to calling it my triple C plan, where what we do is we stay curious, we connect, and then we contribute along with collaborate. So in other words, if there's a plan of action, by staying curious, what we're doing is we're actually getting into the community. We're building a baseline of trust within that community. We're learning of the concerns within that community. We're hearing from the people that have the concerns within the community. And then on top of that, we're starting to brainstorm in reference to how we can solve those solutions. That comes into the connection aspect, where who are our stakeholders, especially when you're looking at resolving some of the problems that we're having. It's usually going to take more than just a police department. It's going to take other partnerships, whether that be through our public schools, whether that be through other city departments, whether that be through different health services. There are so many different partnerships. So again, we got curious, we got connection, and then on top of it, it's contribution. That's where we're actually putting those plans into place. So in other words, can we try something out? Is it working? Is it not working? Can we collaborate together to resolve these issues? And then obviously evaluate, and if we need to change.
And you know, the first time I met you was at the forum at City Hall that you know LCPD hosted. You know, interim chief Story was there. You were there, and there was a lot of community interaction. Particularly, like, what did you walk away from that after hearing from the community? What was the most profound thing, I guess, you walked away with after that whole meeting?
So, with that one in particular, when it came to the community outreach concerns, obviously crime is an issue that's always continuously brought up within our city. We have concerns in reference to some of the felony crime that is occurring, but not only that, but a lot of the quality of life concerns that's happening within our community, which includes not just the felonies, but the misdemeanor crimes as well. One of the great things about having those City Hall interactions is that we do get to make those connections then later to actually address the problems that are occurring within the city. I do remember one of the standouts in particular being a lot of the quality of life concerns when it comes to criminal damage to property, when it came to our businesses downtown and what they're seeing as far as trespassing. And so again, it has to come back to what's occurring. Can we meet with the people and the stakeholders involved, and how can we best support a reduction of the crime, but then on top of that, also prevention as well.
And during that meeting, you know, Chief Story mentioned to me that a lot of those property crimes and things like that happening within our city, also, you know, these people are also dealing with substance abuse disorders, and he mentioned, you know, using those crimes committed as a way to spur them into treatment. How effective do you think that could be, and what is the feedback you're sort of hearing from the community in terms of that strategy?
So I think there's definitely a role to play in reference to our mental health services being involved and incorporated into the long-term solutions here. So yes, we are seeing crimes occurring when it comes to that criminal damage to property or the property theft type of crimes. And one of the nexuses to those crimes can be both mental health and addiction. And so for us, it's been saying, if we're looking at long-term solutions, who can we partner with and who can we reach out to within the community to make sure that individuals are potentially getting what they need as far as help goes. And the great thing is that in Las Cruces, our people are our number one resource, and we do have people that are here wanting to help. Just this last month, we have a new newer organization, Ideal Ideal Solutions, that came in, and they gave a whole presentation to police department wide in reference to their services, in reference to what they can do. We've got other ones available too. The Peak's open. Like, we have crisis intervention officers. We've got our light unit going on with the fire department. I'm happy to say that I'm bringing another couple advocates onto my staff that can actually work in bridging that gap and getting the resources available. Because again, when it comes to really resolving the issues, we're trying to think long-term solution, not so much short-term solution. And that's where the partnerships come into play. And I'm thankful because we do have some here.
And you did mention Project Light. You have this crisis intervention team. Can you just tell me, how has that helped the police department in being able to have these mental health workers and social workers as a part of first responder teams in terms of dealing with mental health crises and other things like that?
So first off, it is through the fire department, so I want to give them kudos where kudos is due. But yes, LIGHT stands for Less Incidents of Grief, Harm, and Trauma. And so they've come up with a whole team that they can respond to when people are in crisis, and it's more of a I haven't been on my meds and I'm feeling really low and depressed today, or I don't feel like myself. A lot of times in the past, officers were responding to those calls, and while we can do our best to help those people in those situations, the LIGHT is actually going in and being able to provide them resources above and potentially beyond what we could have done as a patrol officer. And so what's great about us working in with the LIGHT team is that they can take a look at that call volume coming in and actually respond to those calls versus the actual police officer. And so our dispatch will actually go through and say, okay, this is a LIGHT type of call versus a patrol type of call.
And so they're able to take sort of, some sort of burden off of y'all, I would assume, right? And
yes.
So I
honestly wish there was even like 3 teams of the LIGHT team.
And that was actually what I was about to bring up. I mean, it's not a 24-hour service now, and obviously it's through the fire department, but this seems like something you would advocate for is an expansion of that. Is that correct?
For sure. And here's the thing, I think it goes hand in hand when we're talking about like public safety. And so the fire department is doing a great job. I'll give Paul Ford kudos here too. They are doing a wonderful job with this whole program, and I do hope that it does expand. I can't speak for them, but I would hope so. But with that then, it is helping us then look at the crime aspect of it, and then going into evidence-based solutions, hotspot policing strategies, and taking a look at how we can best use our resources in those areas.
And you talk about using, your resources like as a police officer, but what can communities do to help make their own neighborhood safer? I know, what y'all are pushing right now a lot is neighborhood watch programs. How can people get started with those types of things, and how do those actually help make communities safer?
Sure. And again, so I look at it as the people within the community are our greatest resource. So when it comes to neighborhood watch programs or even business watch programs, which we've also started, this is the people working together as part of that crime solution. So what we're looking at, I like to call them force multipliers. And so a force multiplier can be increasing people in the eyes that are like seeing things around them, but it can also be technology. So when it comes to our neighborhood watches, when it comes to our business watches, what it is it's a collaboration among neighbors, hence the neighborhood watch, or among businesses located in one area. And what they're going to do is they're going to start information sharing, and they're going to start saying, hey, I'm having a problem with this, or did you see something here? We always use the sayings like, see something, say something. In other words, if something seems out of place, probably trust your gut, and it probably is out of place. But then again, if they can coordinate and start talking to one another, this is again where the technology comes into place, where we have cameras usually at the houses with those neighborhood watches. We have cameras at businesses now. As long as the businesses or the resident is willing to share those cameras with us, that is again a force multiplier when it comes to us looking at, again, bigger problem solutions. If we're having a bunch of burglaries in one area, great, we can send resources to that area. And with that, part of the resources is going to be the neighbors. So is there video footage? Is there somebody that was collecting notes in reference to strange vehicles within this area, or are seeing a certain person walking that doesn't normally walk there? Again, that's where the neighborhood watch and them collaborating together. We've got so much ways to collaborate, so many different apps that we can go on nowadays. And so, yes, this is where we're a huge proponent for help us, help you, because the more people that we can get helping each other, the more likely we are to solve and to look at like really reducing the crime within a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. And I know, bridging the badge, you talk about, using social media and technology to your advantage. And you have this thing called Bridging the Badge where community members can come in and give you guys feedback or sort of talk with y'all via these virtual meetings. How have those been going, and what kind of feedback do you think you've been getting from there, and how effective do you think that type of thing is?
So we're on our third Bridging the Badge coming up. And so with that, we feel like it's sort of been slow to go, but at the same time, we also anticipated it. For those that aren't aware, Bridging the Badge is our Zoom meeting that was created as a way to say, hey, this is what we're seeing within the community, and this is something that we want to address and possibly bring an education piece to in order to again, be more of a crime solutions type of approach. Bridging the Badge is a monthly meeting that we hold through Zoom, and it is where we can take questions in the format of whatever topic that we are covering. So we looked at community policing, we've looked at fentanyl with the last one. With this one coming up, we're going to look at recruiting measures as well. But this is where if people have questions, concerns, regarding those topic areas, then by all means, then we can even help necessarily educate, but then also take those concerns to heart as well. We're hoping that, again, it's another avenue that we can use to, again, bridge what we're doing and our efforts are out to the community, but then on top of that, to also hear back from the community as well, and in a different format, similar to how we have the City Hall meetings, but this one, again, is virtual.
Mm-hmm. And so, the department is doing a lot of things to try to, make bonds with the community and things like that. But I think, especially over the past year, there's been a lot of incidents that may have eroded some public trust in the community.
Sure.
I mean, there's been some high-level, police shootings, including Amelia Baca, the elderly woman that was shot by LCPD, or Presley Azee, the young black man that was shot about last year at a gas station here in town. And I was just wondering, first of all, how do you deal with that as the community lieutenant, reaching out to people? How do you try to build, or what's the word? Try to build trust with the community when those types of things are happening?
Sure. That is an excellent question.
Right, and I understand it. I understand it's a difficult question, but I think it really needs to be asked, definitely.
For sure. When I reflect on it, what I can tell you is that I know I love my job, but at the same time, I don't love everything that happens, if that makes sense. I would like to think that the majority of officers that I work with feel the same way, is that we signed up to be a part of our community and to truly keep our community safe. And yet we also know that it's dangerous and tragic things are going to happen. And sometimes we need to walk through those things And by all means, we need to analyze them. By all means, we need to be held accountable when necessary. And by all means, we need to also be continuously changing, because the world is continuously changing. I think when it comes down to incidents happening like that, transparency is key. If we're not transparent with what we're doing, who we are, it erodes the trust. Mm-hmm. And in order for us to keep that trust, we need to be transparent. And obviously that's a difficult balance in the law enforcement community, because we have to balance both making sure that we are stating facts, especially with an incident. We want to remain with the facts versus getting into opinions.
What kind of departmental policies, you know, when these types of things happen, what kind of dialogue happens within the department?
That's also an excellent question. So when these kind of things happen, they're serious in nature. Anytime anybody loses their life, that's a serious incident. So as far as dialogues or things that are occurring, it can be dependent on potentially the people involved or the shift involved. It can be dependent on the supervision involved, your administration involved. A lot of times what it comes down to is we will check in with each other to make sure that we're okay. Because at the end of the day, we're human. And to go through incidents like that is stressful. But at the same time, hopefully we're also checking in with the community, because again, for a community to go through stuff like that is also stressful. That's a huge part of, again, like why we have the community advocates. That's one of the responsibilities that they actually do on my team, is that if we have a large-scale incident that is affecting the community in other ways, they can go into a neighborhood and say, hey, how are you doing, and do we have resources available? It makes me think, when you're walking through difficult situations, a lot of times what we have to do is wade through them. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so we're not going to have like necessarily clear answers right away. And so I think as a law enforcement agency, we understand that. And hopefully we can be transparent with what we can, but hopefully also the community that understands that too. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's what you bring up, you know, the police forces are people, and I think there's maybe a certain portion of the population that sort of might just view police forces as the bad guys. But how can you ensure the community that, you know, you guys are human and you're doing your best to stay transparent with these investigations and things like that? Because I think there's been some pushback against that, like these investigations, you know, with the Amelia Baca shooting, things weren't as clear as the public would like them to be. And that officer was not charged. I would like to reiterate that in that case. But in the AZ shooting, you know, the Attorney General of New Mexico is charging that officer. So how can you keep that public trust and make sure that they know things are open and transparent?
So obviously it comes back down to what we can and cannot share. Like if it's an ongoing investigation or if there are charges brought, then what we want is for that investigation to keep on going. We understand that, again, lives were lost, families are affected, the community is affected. I don't think there is necessarily the best answer or solution to that. I think it's trying to be as transparent as we can, as possible, and at the same time understanding that we have to trust that whatever plays out will play out, and that whatever results out of the investigation was the result of that investigation taking its course and people looking into it that needed to look into it. Sure.
And
I think it's always going to be a difficult situation. Again, those incidents that you talked about, somebody lost their life. And to me, that someone was always somebody's child, always had other family members. And so that's always going to be a difficult situation. And so again, this is where I think as an agency, maybe it's learning to take a breath, and then we let what needs to occur take its course. And then with that, I would hope that the community would see us doing it and maybe do the same.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And I know we don't have a ton of time left, but how do you feel the culture of the police department has changed over the last few years, maybe even the last 5 years?
Sure.
And where would you like to see it in the future, in terms of community relations
Sure.
and beyond?
Sure. So I believe we are changing with the times. Hence, when you see us hiring social workers, us looking at training and saying we need more de-escalation, we need more crisis intervention, we need better partnerships within the community. I see the culture training are changing as far as within the department saying, hey, we're going to put an emphasis on people and making sure that our people are healthy as far as like officer wellness goes. Because if you take care of officer wellness and take care of your people, that's going to have a natural influence, like as far as those people taking care of the community as well. I would like to think that we will continue to change with the times as far as transparency. And I would like to think that with that, we'll still be looking at making sure we're doing our best to solve those problems and solve those crimes, and maybe in ingenious ways, using better technology. As far as culture-wise, I think we're understanding that we need to be part of the community and have the trust within the community in order for the long-term solutions to work.
Certainly. Well, thank you so much for being here. Lieutenant Joy
For sure.
Wiitala is the Community Outreach Lieutenant for the
Yes.
Las Cruces Police Department. Thank you so much for being here to discuss these topics with us today.
For sure.
That's our time for now. Join us this week on KRWG Radio. Every weekday, it's morning edition, 5 to 9, fresh air at 11, followed by Here and Now, noon to 2. And All Things Considered, 4 to 7. KRWG News is always online at krwg.org. And we'd like to hear from you. Email us with video and idea submissions. The address is feedback@nmsu.edu. For all of us at KRWG News, I'm Jonny Coker. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time on Newsmakers.